Alright, hello guys, welcome back. I am the Philadelphia Whovian, and for this video, guys, we're going to do this slight, just discussion on H.G. Wells and his influence on Doctor Who. But before I go into the influence that H.G. Wells had on Doctor Who, I'm going to segue into that after I do a review of the video that finally came into the mail. Sorry for the flare from my lamp. Sorry about that, guys. Doctor Who: The Ark by the William Hartnell era, his third season of the very first Doctor. Now, why am I using this to segue into this discussion about H.G. Wells and his influence on Doctor Who? Because this is one of those stories that clearly was heavily inspired by H.G. Wells' works. And also because it just came in the mail a couple days ago and I finally watched it. Yes! Sorry, I'm not gonna lie. A lot of first and second Doctor and third Doctor and fourth Doctor stories are just too hard to get sometimes here in America, so I'm happy when I get them. So, Doctor Who: The Story of the Ark. Now, again, third season of the first Doctor. The plot line to this one is the Doctor with companions Steve Taylor and Dodo. The TARDIS lands inside of a spaceship that has it's an ark. Basically, it's an ark where the last of the human species are now going to a new planet because Earth is being destroyed. Earth is blowing up, or it's going to sail into the sun and is going to die. Also, they have on board with them creatures called the Monoids, or the Monoids, however you want to pronounce it. Tomato. And what ends with is Dodo. Sorry, I keep wanting to say Dido instead of Dodo. Ugh. Why do they name her Dodo? Why? But Dodo, she comes onto this spaceship, but she has a cold. Yes, the companion, I think she's on the right there. She has a cold, and because the humans on the Ark and the Monoids have not been exposed to the common cold for so many centuries, once she gets there, her cold starts an epidemic, and because their immune systems are not used to it, they begin to die immediately. But eventually the Doctor, after a while of them almost being sentenced to die because of the common cold that Dodo brought, he does develop a cure, and it cures the people. He flies off at the end of the second episode with Dodo and Steve Taylor in the TARDIS. Unfortunately, something's off with the TARDIS and it returns right back in the same place it was, but around 700 years later. So they're nearing the planet that, the Ark is nearing the planet it was trying to get to. But here's the thing. When it was on the ship were the humans, who are the Guardians, and then there were the Monoids, who kind of served them practically. They weren't slaves, but they were it's like indentured servitude almost. Well, the Monoids have now taken over and have made the humans their slaves, and now they're the overlords, and the humans also created some sort of device which helps the Monoids communicate. Because the Monoids used to just do sign language. That's how they communicated. And so they get to the planet, and the inhabitants of the planet actually help the Doctor overthrow the Monoids. And the Monoids were also planning to destroy the rest of the human race by leaving them on the Ark, and the Ark was going to blow up because it left a bomb on them right amidst the statue on the Ark. And they were going to leave the humans on the Ark, so the Ark was going to blow up with all the humans on it. And then once the Monoids even got to the planet, there was a bit of a mutiny, and there was a bit of a civil war between them too. So there's a lot going against the monarchs, including themselves. Yeah, Monoids. And their design, I don't know if you can see it on the cover. Oh, God, sorry for the flare. That's them right there. Their eyeball is in their mouth. I think that's a very unique design, actually. So that's a story about the Ark in a nutshell. And for me, what were my thoughts about the Ark? What's my real feelings towards this story? Well, I know people who like this story and people who don't know the people. I've heard of people who love the story and saw the reviews for it, but I've also seen people who hate this story. Both of you guys are right. The Ark, it's like many Doctor Who episodes. You can like it or not like it. There's no wrong answer to it. For me, what did I feel about it personally? Well, guys, I'm not gonna lie. I'm at that stage where I'm at Doctor Who withdrawal. What I mean by that is, there's a lot of classic Who episodes I still want to watch, but I don't get the chance to see because they're so expensive. The Ark was like $11. I was excited, so I got it, and I'm happy I have it because I got another William Hartnell story. Also, why am I happy? Because I also got introduced to the character of Dodo and Steve Taylor. These are two companions that I've heard about, but I've never actually seen. And Steve Taylor, I love Steve. If he's like this all the time, I like Steve Taylor. I really like Steve Taylor a lot. He's a very overlooked companion. When it comes to Dodo, I don't think ever makes anyone's top 10 list. And I'm seeing why. Yeah, guys. If she's not on your top 10 or top 20 companions list, I see why. Totally. For me, with this watching Dodo, there was just nothing about her that made her feel special to me. Like, she wasn't a bad person or anything, but literally when I was watching her, I'm like, I just felt like she was just a replacement to, Susan's gone, Vicky's gone, Ian and Barbara, they're all gone. We need a replacement for the female, like for the Barbara, Susan, Vicky situation. So now we've got Dodo. And I just feel like that's all, I probably would feel more connection to her if I probably saw her first episode where she gets introduced. This clearly is not her first episode. So if I saw the origins of Dodo, maybe I would like her. But there's just something about her. It just feels very, whatever, bland. Like she really is just there to fill a void. And that's it. Which is sad that I say this because she was helpful sometimes in the third and fourth parts of the story. Dodo really did help. She did. But the first half was, her being used as the device to bring the problem to this spaceship. Again, it's not her fault or anything, but there's something about her, I can't explain it. I just didn't connect with Dodo. Again, maybe it would help if I saw her very first episode, I saw the origins of Dodo. But I just don't feel connection. I'm sorry, guys. What can you do? I don't know why. It's just me, probably. But either way, I'm still happy I saw Dodo and Steve Taylor a great deal because I wanted to see, two companions who I've not seen before. I knew that I hadn't seen those people before, so I wanted to see them finally. So I got with this story to see two new companions I have not seen before. And overall, I was not disappointed. I thought the idea was a very good idea of what the Ark represented. If you do not like the story, understandable. If you do, understandable. It's a polarizing story. It really is. Alright, but my main thing I liked about the Ark, honestly, guys, I really like the first Doctor in this. William Hartnell, he was actually very good in this to me, personally. After Vicky left, I was like, oh, is he ever going to have a connection with any other companion again the way he had it with Vicky? But no, William Hartnell, whatever he was feeling when it came to filming this, if he didn't really feel a connection to Dodo and Steve Taylor the way he did with Ian, Barbara, Susan, or Vicky, he hit it. William Hartnell did a very good job in performing this story. I thought he was very, very good. So now, what this video was ultimately about was, again, H.G. Wells and his influence on Doctor Who. Why did I start out with the Ark? Because the Ark, well, actually has a deep influences of H.G. Wells in the storyline. But H.G. Wells has had an influence on Doctor Who always. Obviously. The biggest connection we get to Doctor Who connecting itself to H.G. Wells was the Sixth Doctor story, Timelash, of course, where H.G. Wells comes into the story and he's a part of the adventure with the Sixth Doctor and Peri. And he's very brave all throughout it. But, it's one of those situations where, of course I'm assuming people all know this, but you gotta say it anyway, just in case someone doesn't know it. This is not one of those things where Doctor Who inspired H.G. Wells. It's backwards to the episode of Timelash. H.G. Wells is what inspired Doctor Who. Because people often forget when H.G. Wells began to become a writer. H.G. Wells was a very young man, I think it was like his late teens, maybe even 19, where he had like an accident playing sports in some way, and the doctor said, you're probably not going to make it past your 30th birthday, meaning H.G. Wells is going to die young. As a result, H.G. Wells got to work really quickly, and at a young age, he began to write a lot of stuff and actually get it published, which is very successful. And among his works were things like The Time Machine and The Invisible Man. I want to say The Sleeper's Wake also inspired this story, but I could be wrong about that. Yes, and also War of the Worlds. You betcha. And so the story of the Ark has all that in it. But of course, the Time Machine being the most prominent one. The idea of, because the time traveler in H.G. Wells' story actually didn't really have a name. He was just known as the Traveler or the Time Traveler. That's all he was really known as. The way the Doctor is known as the Doctor. Both the Time Traveler in H.G. Wells' story, The Time Machine, and the Doctor, you never really are told their actual name. There's that, and of course there is the idea of the time machine, a machine the traveler uses to go back, or to go forward in time and to find out what will possibly happen. The TARDIS, the time machine, blatant reference there. H.G. Wells, some people call H.G. Wells the father of science fiction. You could easily argue that. I know there are some science fiction writers before him, but I don't really know much about them, so I can't tell you how much of an influence they had. I don't know if their influence on science fiction was as large as it was H.G. Wells' influence, but he had a very large influence on sci-fi, science fiction. Again, some people even say he really was the father of it. Sorry guys, I'm talking a while again. Oh, what can you do? I'm sorry that my camera was wobbling. My cat got, see, hold on, dear Lord. I'm sorry guys. Come on. Hello my beautiful boy. I'm sorry, but yes, you can't get on the camera. He'll go down in a second. See, he got down. But I do love him. So, when it comes to the Ark in particular, there's a bit of an amalgamation of H.G. Wells' influence on this story. One of those, again, if you see very early on in the Ark, there's a statue being built. It's a very large statue. And we find out in the first, I think the third story, third episode of this story, the Monoids have hidden a bomb inside the statue so they can blow up the Ark when they get off of the Ark, the spaceship. That easily, you could make a reference for that to the story of the Time Machine, where the time traveler, his machine was stuck inside of a Sphinx, and he had to get his time machine out of the Sphinx. The idea of a large statue containing something in it. That time it was a machine, this time in the Ark it's a bomb. So there's that blatant reference on top of the simple fact that the idea of the TARDIS, time machine, clearly was probably inspired by H.G. Wells' story, The Time Machine itself. So you've got that. But then you also got the War of the Worlds connection. You see, how Dodo, I keep wanting to say Dido because darn it, guys, why do they have to name her Dodo? I mean, it's not a bad name, but Dido is so much better than Dodo. Just is! Sorry. But where Dodo brings the common cold on board, you could easily say that has some inspirations to the War of the Worlds, where the aliens got destroyed simply because of the idea of germs and the common cold infecting them. Yeah. H.G. Wells, there's, I believe, another reference to the Sleeper's Wake in here. I'm sorry, gosh. Darn, another reference to H.G. Wells' stories is H.G. Wells' The Invisible Man. Because when you finally get onto the planet they were trying to get to after Earth was destroyed, the people who are there are all invisible, just like the Invisible Man. Very much so. 3 important connections to H.G. Wells are in this one story alone. And that gives us to be able to talk about H.G. Wells' influence on Doctor Who in general. Now, is there a possibility that Doctor Who could have become Doctor Who without the influence of H.G. Wells? I think it's a question we don't even need to ask ourselves because it's a question we can never know. H.G. Wells, often people forget he was a sci-fi writer during Victorian England. By the time that Doctor Who was created, H.G. Wells had such a large impact. His writing was so monumental by that point that I feel like it has no choice but to have been a main influence on the show of Doctor Who in general. And something I'm grateful to when it comes to the Ark story is the Monoids themselves. Now, the Monoids are one-off villain, and it's one-off villains in Doctor Who happen usually because the writers, they do a one story and they never do another Doctor Who story. So the Monoids, did not make a comeback. But I'm grateful to them for existing, because I can't help but think that just maybe the Monoids might have been very influential in the idea of the Ood in New Who. Some people love the Ood in New Who, some don't like it, a couple don't like it, but either way, think about the Ood and think about the Monoids. You got these creatures very, alien looking, and something coming out of their mouths to communicate with other people. If they didn't have those things come out of their mouths, they wouldn't communicate. The Monoids has something wrapped around their neck that the humans invented to help them communicate. Now they're able to talk through this object around their neck, as the Ood can talk from that thing coming from their mouths. I can't help but think it. I just really can't help but think the Monoids might have been, it's a theory, I have no evidence, but they might have helped influence the idea of what the Ood would become in New Who. Now, here's a funny thing about H.G. Wells. I mean, H.G. Wells, he's like many of us writers, where... I had to drink some more water. Sorry, guys. Where H.G. Wells got more critical, and he got more nihilistic, or pessimistic, if you will, as time wore on. You see, his doctors were not correct. He made it past 30. Oh, he made it to his well old age. But as he got older, he began to look on his earlier works as being kind of primitive or not sophisticated, and he didn't really look on them with disdain, but more than indifference. He was just kind of cold towards earlier works. So sometimes when people would stop him on the street in an older age, say, "Oh, I love the Time Machine" or The Invisible Man, he's like, "Oh gosh, why do you like that? It's rubbish. Read my latest novel, one where I clearly did better research on," etc. and so forth. So the question then becomes with H.G. Wells. H.G. Wells, would he have liked Doctor Who itself? And we're all naturally want to think, yeah, he would have liked Doctor Who. Clearly, this is something completely and possibly inspired from his works. Why would he not? Sorry, the cat's on the camera again. He knocked it over. Knocked it again. Sorry, guys. But why would H.G. Wells not like, Doctor Who, the idea of it? Because once again, H.G. Wells, the older he got in life, he just became a little bit, pessimistic towards his own ideas, his own writing, his own work. Something about it was just less attractive to him. There's a possibility that as H.G. Wells got older, he might not have been too fond of the idea of Doctor Who. When he was younger, in his 20s, he probably would have been thrilled at the idea of what Doctor Who was. However, as he got older, it's more likely that he might not have been as crazy at the idea as we want to believe he would have been. That's just speculation, but this is something that people have been theorizing about, fans of his, for quite some time. By the way he was in the later days of his life, something like Doctor Who might not have appealed to him. Or he might not have considered true sci-fi, because some people do not even consider Doctor Who sci-fi. They consider it more melodrama or elements of fantasy, or mixtures of fantasy with science fiction and melodrama or drama. It's really kind of not easy to tell what H.G. Wells would have thought of his works. But at the end of the day, it's undeniable. H.G. Wells, the writer of The Time Machine, The Invisible Man, War of the Worlds, and other really iconic works that just leapt off the page and there's my cat again, grabbed the attention of the audience at that time during Victorian England. Over time, his influence would grow and eventually would reach cinema. Now, Doctor Who itself, you can easily and successfully argue that it got its inspiration from the cinematic side of sci-fi, because over time science fiction began to take over, film or television, even before Doctor Who came out. As a result, Doctor Who naturally would and did get inspiration from the TV shows that were happening around it. That being said, it still cannot be ruled out that H.G. Wells 9 times out of 10 has a significant impact on Doctor Who. Could have even been the root of what it became. Easily, you could argue that, just like H.G. Wells could have been the root of all those other sci-fi movies that came out, or films, or TV shows that came out before, before Doctor Who did. And again, these are all just mere speculation, but this is speculation that more likely than not just feels like it probably is true, and it perhaps has to be, because H.G. Wells was too prolific of a writer, and he kept writing for the longest time, well into his old age. Whether he would have liked Doctor Who or not, there's no way of knowing. But I want to believe he would, in some part of him, would have really liked the idea of what Doctor Who did in fact become, and what it was founded on, and the inspiration it clearly got from his work. I want to believe that. I really do. Because I like H.G. Wells as a writer, and therefore the arc, while some people perhaps do not like this story, I have to overall really say I enjoy it or approve it, because one, I admit, again, through Doctor Who purchase withdrawal, I need my fix, guys. I need as many Doctor Who stories as I can possibly buy. I need my fix. There's that, but also because it does show significantly the impact H.G. Wells probably did have on Doctor Who itself. So guys, that's my video. I know it's kind of a sober video, not that much, excitement going on, but it was just one story, video. I wanted to just, talk randomly about something, a topic I've always wanted to talk about. So, for those of you guys who have kind of stopped by, thank you so very much. And my cat's pulling at my leg. Stop it, I love you, but stop it. Thank you guys so very much. I hope you enjoyed yourselves. Till the next time, guys.